Hello, my name's Phil and I work for the Consumer Services Department at the Hozelock head office in Birmingham. With over 50 years horticultural expertise, we at Hozelock understand the rewards of gardening and want to help you to get the best from your garden. Okay, so in this video I'm going to take you through the process of replacing the hose in your 40-metre fast reel. The process will be very similar for the 40-metre floor standing version, which is the one that I have here, and the 40-metre wall mounted version. But in the floor standing version, which is the one I'm going to show you now, the first thing we have to do is take off the feeder hose from the inlet, like so, and we put that feeder hose to one side. I'm now going to pull all of the hose from the fast reel, so that's all 40 metres has to be unwound, so we'll do that next. So that's all of the 40 metres of hose from the reel. So we're now going to lay the reel so that the inlet is facing upwards. And then there are a series of holes around the periphery of the reel that we're going to undo the screws from. So inside each of those holes you'll find there's a self-tapping screw. That's the 8th screw, and the final screw is in the middle of the handle there. So with all of the 9 screws removed, we can now just lift the top half of the case away and it should come away from the bottom half. You might find it easier if you put your fingers inside this slot and just lift the reel off. So we've lifted the case half off, and now we're going to remove the little toothed belt that goes around the 2 drive cogs just there. The next thing we have to do is remove this grey inlet. To do that we need to flick off the little green securing clip, which you can see there, that secures the elbow. So using the tip of a screwdriver or a ballpoint pen, just lift the clip away like so. Don't lose that because you'll need that for when you reconnect the elbow, and then the elbow will just pull out. The next thing we have to take off is this cover plate, which is held on by these 3 screws. So we'll just do that now. With the 3 screws removed, you can then lift the cover plate off. You can then see the water inlet moulding, which is this large white moulding through which this black shaft passes, and the hose is connected to it with a black plastic clip. We need to remove this water inlet moulding by just lifting it up like so. In your hose replacement kit you'll get a replacement one of these inlet mouldings and also a new clip. So what we can do to save time and make the process a bit easier is just cut off the water inlet assembly from the hose. So approximately 8 inches away, so that you don't accidentally cut through the steel spring that's inside the hose. Just cut through the hose. Remove the water inlet moulding and the clip, and if it hasn't already fallen out like mine's just done, remove the main hose that you're going to replace. So with all of the hose removed, we're now going to refit the replacement hose. What you'll get in the replacement hose kit is of course a new 40-metre hose. You'll also get a new water inlet moulding, another spring and another hose clip, and of course some written instructions should you need to refer to them. So what we're going to do first is lay the 40 metres of hose out in a straight line so that when we wind it back onto the reel it doesn't become kinked or bent. So as much as we can, I'm going to lay the hose out in a straight line. When you unwind the hose, it's always best to unwind it in the manner that it was coiled in the first place, which is like so that you don't get any kinks as you unwind it. So we've laid the hose out down the garden so that it's nice and straight, and we're now going to reconnect it back into the centre of the fast reel. Taking the free end of the hose, we're going to pass it through the grey rollers that are in the front of the reel. This is the layering mechanism that layers the hose from side to side. It then gets passed through this semicircular channel so that it comes out into the centre of the reel there, where it's going to be connected to the inlet of the shaft. We're now going to connect the water inlet to the end of the hose, and to do that we're going to firstly fit the anti-king spring onto the water inlet by screwing it onto this threaded portion that sticks out from the side of the water inlet there. With that fully screwed on, we're going to feed the spring down the centre of the hose, and push the hose over the spring and onto the water inlet connection at the side. Push the hose on as far as it will go, like so. And finally we're going to fit the plastic clip that secures the hose to the water inlet. So just flexing the clip open, we can pass it over the hose and slide it up till it's about 3 millimeters from the end of the hose, like so. If we then squeeze the ears together, it'll start to secure the hose to the water inlet moulding. And to finish off the attachment, we can get a pair of pliers and fully squeeze those two lugs together so that they fully ratchet up and grip the hose nice and tightly. So with the water inlet refitted to the hose, we now fit the water inlet into the centre of the reel over the black shaft, taking care that the hose lies in the semicircular channel that I mentioned before, and push it all the way down. Finally, we need to refit the cover plate with the 3 screws there. Next thing we need to do is refit the belt over the large cog there and then the small cog there. It's quite okay to pull the layering mechanism slightly towards you to get the belt on, but just make sure the teeth are actually engaged in all the teeth in the 2 gears. And the final thing to do is to refit the inlet elbow. The inlet elbow points towards the opposite side to where the hose enters, so the hose is entering from your left, so the inlet will point towards the right. If you look on the end of the shaft, and I'll take the elbow out again to show you, there is a little notch in the end of the shaft here. That notch should line up with the square tooth of these 3 teeth on the circlip, so that when you put it in place, the circlip lines up with that square tooth. So I've put the elbow back in place, and I'm now refitting the green circlip to the shaft, like so. The next thing we're going to do is refit the drum, the half of the drum case, back to the fast reel so that we can put it back together. So the large pin in the side of the green case will pass through this large hole in the layering mechanism here, and that will prevent the layering mechanism moving about during use. So we're going to offer the case up to the other half, visually make sure it's all in line. Obviously move the hose out of the way if you need to. I've just had to move the handle out of the way there because that can also stop you successfully lining the case up, but just take a little bit of time just going round the join of the case, and you may have to squeeze the case together or press it slightly just to form it into shape. And you can then just look around the case and make sure that there's no obvious gaps where things aren't lining up properly. When you've got that nicely lined up, we can then fit the 9 screws back into the case. So with all the screws nicely tightened, we can turn the case so that it's upwards, and we can then wind the 40 metres of hose back onto the reel. So we've wound most of the hose back onto the fast reel now, but before we get too near the end of the hose, we're going to refit the water stop fitting back onto the end. This is so that we don't inadvertently have the hose disappear inside the case and be lost forever. So we've refitted the water stop fitting back onto the hose, tighten the nut up nice and tightly, and then wound the remaining length of hose back on. And the final job we'll be doing is refitting the feeder hose back onto the inlet, like so. And that's it, we've replaced the hose in our fast reel. That's it, job done.